Welcome on today's conversation on the future of work, where AI isn't just a buzzword, but a business driver. This is Lenovo Work Reborn, live in Orlando. Hey Sandeep, how are you doing today?
I am well. Thanks for asking.
Thank you for coming by the Lenovo Work Reborn podcast booth. We're interviewing leaders in IT around how we're bringing new life to the modern workplace.
Sure.
And I think you're just the right person to talk to us a little bit about that
Glad
today.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So Sandeep, tell me a little bit about your role, your company. What do you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So in my company, I have the role of the Chief Growth Officer. What that really means is, in addition to enabling new business and sales leadership, I also have to think about how do we enable the next phase of growth? What do we need to do to get ready for that growth? So all of those areas kind of come up to me. So I'm really glad to be here at the Gartner Summit and talking to you.
Yes. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier, but we are a partner with FIFA. And you don't have to be a huge fan of the sport to see the parallels between what running a great football team is and maybe running a great business is, right? And in every team, there's always a star player that comes in and changes everything. And I think AI is that for us right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think AI has a lot of promise.
Yes.
But I think just like a star player needs the right kind of support, AI also is at a point where you have to create the right structure for it. Because AI is still so new, there is a lot of hype around it, and I think there are a lot of expectations. So if people are not careful, the hype can sometimes overtake what the reality is. So
Right.
organizations have to be careful that they get the right kind of ROI. So choosing the right kind of problems, creating the right kind of support ecosystem, training their employees in the right manner are all the basic requirements to make AI effective.
Right. Let's dive into that a little bit more. You know, we did mention previous episodes and even this one. We interviewed over 600 senior IT leaders about this topic. And according to our Work Reborn report research, more than 75% of leaders agreed that IT support must transform for employee experience as well. It's not just about the outcomes for the business externally, but it's internal too, right? So how do you balance cost efficiency with that focus?
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting question. For the employee experience to transform, I think it's a partnership between the employees having the right kind of expectations because the workforce is changing. And what made people successful 5 years ago, even, is not going to be true in the 5 years that are about to come. So, an employee must have the right framework where they have to kind of be responsible for their own success, which means keeping up with all the changes that are happening in AI. You cannot have an expectation that the company or the organization that you work for will do the entire thing.
That's right.
Similarly, on the organization side, you have to create a structure which supports that growth. And one of the things that's going to happen is that organizations have to be ready to do transformation from a workforce perspective because some of the roles that exist in organizations today are not going to exist in the organization of tomorrow.
Tell me about that. What are your guesses on what that could look like?
So it's going to look a little bit different for every organization. There is unfortunately not going to be a one size fits all.
That's true.
I will talk to you a little bit about our organization where we are a systems integrator. And as we look to support our customers, we also have to understand what their business is. And sometimes it's not about talking to customers and asking what they need. Sometimes it's also providing the leadership of where we think where they ought to go and having that conversation. And we actually do that with some of our customers. So for instance, some of the roles which are entry level roles, which are very research related, I think those will disappear over time.
Right.
I think a lot of the analyst work that gets done is going to disappear over time. What the new roles that are going to come in are people who have the ability to reimagine what the clients, at least from our perspective, how can we help them with their business? And therefore, understanding the client needs, understanding the capabilities from an AI perspective, and understanding what we need to do to support our customers
Right.
are going to be important skills which don't exist today, which is where we have to help our employees with that transformation.
Yeah, I'm so interested in seeing like what those roles will develop into, right? And how that change is going to occur. In a different show, we talked about how an example was even in insurance claims. Like submitting an insurance claim used to be just send a picture and somebody would analyze and process it. But even that now somebody has to recognize, is this photo AI or not, type of a thing, you know? So I think you bring in a great perspective on like it's not just about getting ready, but also being prepared as well too.
Absolutely. And therefore, it's a partnership both between the employee and the organization.
Right.
It has to work together seamlessly.
Well, another thing that we kind of dived into in the report was, which we talked to a little bit just a second ago, is which skills will be critical, right? So we talked about, you know, when the workforce becomes AI enabled, skills or functions that might phase out. But looking forward, which roles do you think will be critical to the organization?
It's a very interesting question. I think from a skills perspective, you really have to understand what is it that AI does well. So for instance, we have a lot of developers in our company. A lot of the development work that they do is now being taken over by software packages. But where AI is not coming into fore is how do you actually write the prompts to create the context? Because AI will mean very different things for different industries. And even in the same industry, we, for instance, deal with large enterprises. The context of every enterprise is different. And therefore, when you create the new software or you use AI to use the tool, if you do not create the context for the AI to give you a response, you are going to get a lot of junk back, you are going to get a lot of hallucinations. And therefore, understanding that context for our employees is going to be very critical, and they will have to develop into quasi experts in AI, experts in the clients that they are assigned to, and therefore have to do very quick learning, which they have not had to do in the past.
I'm also curious about soft skills as well. Do you feel that interpersonal relations, like, you know, like motivation or client relation, like personalized one-to-one experiential things might also be critical too as the softwares kind of take over the mechanical work? Like how important do you think interpersonal relations will be?
It's an interesting question because, more and more I see people who are joining the workforce have been living in this framework which is very COVID driven.
Right,
where the
isolated or
very isolated, and they think it's okay to be working from home and there's nothing wrong with working from
right.
home. But that's not how you build organizations. For organizations to build, it's no different than a family. You have to have the personal interaction, you have to have the ability to go into the office, to
Or go
meet
to an event
people,
just like this.
or come to an event just like this. But I think being isolated and thinking that you can create an organization and a structure, I don't think is simply possible. What you do is, if you follow that methodology, you make the interface with the organization very, very tactical. It's very transactional. And in my mind, those kind of organizations, if you're a transactional organization, that works in a very dystopian kind of context.
Right.
But if you truly want a relationship with your customers where they can count on you when things are not going well, those relationships are going to be very, very important.
Right.
So it's important to give people a reason to come into the office.
That's that employee engagement factor.
It's very, very important.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed your perspective. Thank you so much for coming by our
Not at all.
booth
I enjoyed
today.
talking to you.
If anyone is interested in learning more about our findings from the Work Reborn report and you're listening to the show, check it out, download it in the link in the description below. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, download the QR code over here on the screen and get your copy of the report. Like, subscribe, and comment for your continued support of the Lenovo Work Reborn podcast, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us live in Orlando for this amazing episode of Work Reborn. I've been your host, Rita Risha, and it's been a pleasure to bring you insightful conversations from around the world, especially at this event, on how we are bringing new life to the modern workplace. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to stay tuned on more ways that we are doing just that, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe our channel, and download a copy of the Work Reborn report today. Lenovo.